amazing. It's amazing.
When I first heard about this, I thought it was fiction. Seriously? Someone discovered demijohns of century-old Madeira that hadn't been touched since the mid-1800s? Well, not only was it true, but we were there to film the scenes at the Christie's rare wine storage warehouse in the Bronx when the cork and Madeira experts who had flown into New York the night before to open, sample, and re-cork this rare find, and then attend the press lunch the next day where esteemed New York Times wine columnist Eric Asimov, who was in attendance and would later write in his column, The Pour, that it was one of the 12 most memorable things he tasted all year.
I'm Mike Colameco, industry insider. Been in the business my whole life, and I know what it takes to succeed. Each week we'll take you into real kitchens, filmed in real time. Backstage passes to a day in the life of chefs, restaurateurs, and their teams. The competition's fierce. Careers, life savings, and reputations hang in the balance. These are my people, and this is their passion. And that's what's next on Mike Colameco's Real Food.
Mike Colameco's Real Food is brought to you by the continuous, generous support of the following underwriters.
Extra virgin olive oil from COLAVITA, an Italian family brand.
Rachel Ray's signature specialty food line, designed for preparing meals at home.
You have to watch the stairs because they could, sometimes people don't see them.
Pretty amazing.
It's amazing. It really occurred because we decided we had to do something about the liquor closet downstairs. The wood had rotted and we felt that the bottles would fall on the floor at almost at any moment. Hadn't been touched in years and years. Prince of Wales blend, but I don't know what the Prince of Wales blend is. Oh, Madeira at the top.
It says Madeira at the top.
Yeah. So we started to look through there, and all of a sudden a bottle of Madeira showed up with a very, very early date in the 1700s.
So we're standing outside Liberty Hall, which is a museum now. It's been a museum for a while. But the history here is amazing. I mean, the Kane family goes back to the Continental Congress. There have been 8 presidents that have visited this house, if not have slept in it, going back to, I don't know what, George Washington. It's crazy. Alexander Hamilton lived here for a while. There's Roosevelt's and Livingstons. It's like old New York, New Jersey. I don't want to say landed gentry, but these people go back to the earliest days of New York, New Jersey, and American politics. And that's probably the Madeira connection too, because back then when we celebrated, or they celebrated, Madeira was what the country toasted with. It was like one of the favorite beverages of Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. Madeira was the thing that they raised a glass of when they were signing documents, making treaties. So that's my theory on why the Kane family ended up with such a treasure trove of these ancient demijohns that have just been sitting undiscovered for centuries.
Well, we showed Christie's everything we had, and I think they were overawed. They couldn't believe that we had this very, very early Madeira. The Portuguese people particularly are very interested in our collection, not so much because of the Madeira, but more because of the cork. Because today they have to compete with plastic corks, they have to compete with screw tops, and here a cork was really the way these bottles were sealed and the way it's still perfect today.
It's time to remember the yes, the moment is there. That's fantastic. It's already coming out a bit. Clearly a very old cork.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a natural product, the cork, and see. Perfect. This smells.
Oh,
It's characteristic. It's Madeira, isn't it? So,
sweet, beautiful.
yeah.
If this wine could tell stories, I mean, the world looked completely different then. I mean, it's amazing, you know. And you've got the opportunity to taste that from grapes made in that year.
You were yesterday at the re-corking in the Bronx, beholding this century-and-a-half old glass right? This piece of history,
Absolutely.
right? And we're all moving it around like everyone's afraid. Who wants to move it to the table?
Yes.
Who wants to pour it into the
Absolutely.
decanter?
Yeah, I mean, I've been at Christie's for 21 years. I started here when I was a young kid as an intern, basically. And it's the first time, really, that I've had any experience of that sort of thing. Opening demijohns that we didn't know what was inside them. We had experts on hand, that's why we flew them in to give us a hand, that we needed help identifying that product. It's part of what makes working for Christie's the unique place that it is.
That's why in older Madeira,
No, Madeira is the great forgotten wine of American history. I mean, it was immensely popular in the colonial era. It was served during the signing of the Declaration of Independence.
Which is amazing.
Which is
Part of
amazing.
a celebration, they toasted with Madeira.
With Madeira. And today, I mean, count the number of times you've been at a dinner party and someone's like, I'm bringing out the Madeira now. It's just, it never happens.
multi-layered, every time you pick up the glass you smell something different.
If you think about it, it's one of the only historical sort of products that you can interact with in that way. I mean, what else, how else would you taste something from that era? You can't taste the food from that era, but here you can taste a wine, a fortified wine from that era. And to me, that's just incredible and really reflects, you know, a piece of history.
It's virtually indestructible. Collectors of Madeira, they will buy a bottle, they'll open it, they'll taste it, they'll go back to it in a year. It'd be much the same. They'll go back to it in another year, it'll be much the same. Its longevity is enormous. It lasts once you've even opened it and started drinking it, it'll last forever.
595. This is the old Cercio Madeira, 1846.
Who do you think's buying these?
I think the Madeira nerds are somewhat a parallel crowd to the new chartreuse nerds and the new kind of Jura, Chateau Chalon, Pascaline wines in that kind of regard. I've certainly, the people that I know that buy Old Madeira that I was here bidding on behalf of was someone that's a big rum nerd and also really loves Madeira. I could not tell you why. I've gotten to drink some crazy ones with people like that, but at the same time, I go to a lot of wine dinners. I work a lot of wine dinners. Never do we open Madeira. We oddly open some port these days, but so much of the port gets left on the table.
The next step would be to seal it again with a new cork. I mean, as we've seen, the old cork has been, you know, doing its work for a long time, but now needs to be replaced by a fresh new cork.
Part of the procedure yesterday was to uncork those old demijohns, and then you brought cork with you to re-cork them.
We did. We brought very unique, tailor-made cork stoppers, carved as a single piece from the bark of a cork oak, a tree that never gets cut down and which you can harvest several times over its lifespan, about 18, 19, because they live about 250 years. So in terms of a timeline, the cork from this 19th century wine that we were replacing could actually come from the same tree out of which we got the corks that today, in 2018, we'll be using it.
It's just amazing that all this stuff was sealed up. We had no idea really what was here, other than it was just a mess. And that cleaning it up, we discovered things in here that no one knew was there before.
All right, so we're at Liberty Hall in Union, New Jersey with Mr. Kane, this incredible New Jersey history, this amazing old building and this whole part of the Revolutionary War in Jersey history. And I thought, you know, I'm already in Jersey. Let's go visit my friend Chris Cannon at Jockey Hollow Bar and Kitchen in Morristown, just a couple of towns over, another town steeped in history. And Chris is a guy I've known forever. He was in Manhattan for years, has a great story, great pedigree, wine guy, food guy. You want to talk food, wine, Madeira, cork, he's the guy. So the rest of the day, Morristown, New Jersey, Jockey Hollow Bar and Kitchen. So, it took me a long time to get out here.
That's okay. You're from Jersey and you can't even get out of here.
Yeah, well, kind of like I sneak up the Garden State Parkway, make a right-hand turn into the Holland Tunnel, and disappear to the Lower East Side. But it's kind of like being from Jersey.
And then when you get out, you take a left and go down to Cape
down
May.
the whole coastline bit, so I don't come in. So anyway, your background's amazing. So you started in, like, going back to youth. Brown, Ivy League College, with some kind of double major that had nothing to do with hospitality and restaurant.
No, I wanted to go get a regular education because I wanted to be a restaurateur, and I thought, hey, a restaurateur's got to be erudite, intelligent, worldly, whatever.
And you spent a couple of years back of the house in Paris, cooking in like legit, like
No, I was a year
Michelin-starred
there. I
restaurants.
was a year in New York doing other stuff, and then I decided, because I couldn't get a work permit in 1985 in France
By
because
France, right.
there
Right.
was so much unemployment, et cetera, that I came back to the United States and decided to work at the front of the house.
You were partnered for a bit of time during the rise and certainly helped with it with Michael White. You did Madeira together, you had Convivio together, you had that other one that was Alto by that pink shirt place, I remember that one. They were all fantastic, all super highly regarded. And then this comes up. We're in Morristown, so we're a couple of stops on the train. From the train. This had been the personal estate of
Theodore Vail, who was the first president of AT&T. His uncle helped create the telegraph. He created the telephone with Alexander Graham Bell. He created the long-distance monopoly. They were a big family in town.
Jersey royalty.
Right. Well, the physical space, when I first saw it, I was just like, it was empty. It had been empty for 10, 12 years, 15 years, whatever it was. And I walked in and I was like, immediately struck with like, oh my God, this place, you gotta use this. It's unbelievable. So this room we're in now with the columns and everything, the minute I saw it, I said, this is like an oyster bar. Perfect. Down here we had like an American kind of brasserie kind of menu, really simple, really nice.
So here we have our yellowfin tuna. We have a little bit of a steak sauce on the bottom that we make in-house. There's a sunchoke and potato mash underneath. The seared tuna. And we have some little gem lettuce dressed in a sherry vinaigrette, and then some crispy onion rings on top.
You remember how to make this?
In the back, we have the Vail Bar, which was the library, and then when it was City Hall here afterwards.
This was literally City Hall for Morristown.
Yeah, 72 years City Hall. That was the courtroom. So I have a perverse sense of humor. I said, you know, courtroom should be a bar.
What I'm going to make for you today, Mike, is our Game of Thrones, which is simple.
Hey.
It's a traditional rye old-fashioned, and then we add a little cedar smoke seasoning.
And I don't get my head chopped off or anything? We're not pulling a Stark on me or... Okay.
No, I don't watch the show, so I don't know any of the reference. It happens often.
It happens often.
We just start burning our cedar with our nice gold torch.
I'm going to start making this drink at home. Wife's going to love it.
We just do a little bit of our Angostura aromatic bitters and some orange bitters. Then we'll just add a little bit of our house-made cane syrup, a couple of ounces of overproof rye whiskey.
I know the brand. And that's 50-50 the sugar, simple syrup?
It's 2 parts sugar.
2 to 1, okay.
To 1, yeah, so
okay.
it's a rich syrup.
Okay.
For sure. You've drank these before.
I just drink and I know things.
A nice stir to the cocktail. We'll add our hand-cut large format ice cube to the glass.
Of course, of course. We got the temperature, we got the dilution, now we just want to hold it.
You're a pro.
Sadly.
And then it wouldn't be finished without a little bit of orange oil and lemon oil. Cheers.
Oh, this looks lovely. Thank you.
What do you think?
That's about perfect.
Good.
So it's like late November and there's a chill in the air and this is great.
We're here to warm you up.
All right, we're here with Chef Craig upstairs at Jockey Hollow in the Da Pesca, is that the name of the dining room?
Yes, sir.
So this is, I mean, I love this idea. Tons of local Jersey seafood, like 99.9% of what you're getting, which is great, because Jersey's got a huge commercial fisheries.
Absolutely.
You guys are locked into that. We're going to have you do some demos tonight. We're going to eat with you later on. Tell me about the demos you're doing. What's the first one?
First one we're doing is a fluke crudo. So it's local fluke. It's caught right off the shore here in Jersey. It's made with some buttermilk that we make in-house, a little bit of dill, and some fermented kohlrabi.
Simple's good.
Yep, absolutely.
Go at it, Chef.
All right. This is a white soy sauce. So it's a little lighter in flavor than regular soy. Some olive oil. Fluke is typically somewhat of a lean fish, so adding a little bit of fat to the dish definitely helps. And then we're going to season it with just a little bit of salt. So here we have some fermented kohlrabi. Actually put it in a vacuum seal bag with some salt and let it ferment for about 2 days. The acidity balances out the rest of the dish here.
And a lot of crunch.
Absolutely. Just going to put the fish right around and on top. And then most of the fat from the dish comes from this buttermilk that we make in-house.
That's interesting.
Find that raw fish and buttermilk go very well together.
Yeah, I would have never thought of that.
They
It's
kind
funny.
of play off each other. The acidity and the fat just kind of helps to accentuate the flavor of the fish. Here we have a little bit of dill oil. Dill and dairy is very classic, obviously, but dill with kohlrabi is also fairly classic as well. Just a little bit of that. just some regular picked dill, some toasted almonds. This is actually chicken skins. This adds a little bit of flavor as well as texture to the dish.
Yeah,
and richness
certain
as
schools of like Jewish cooking, they call that grivenesses.
Adds a lot
Who
of
doesn't
flavor.
like chicken skin?
And then just a little bit of caviar. We're just putting some caviar in to accentuate the fish flavor, as well as add some salinity to the dish as well. And there we have it.
Beautiful. Just curious about this combination.
All right. Well, hopefully you like it.
Yeah. That's great.
Awesome. So we have our swordfish, has a cauliflower risotto underneath, and then a little bit of celery, some pickled grapes, and then brown butter breadcrumbs on top. 227, it's for the table. This is sweet potato soup, a little bit of toasted pumpkin seeds, some fried sage, and then we have a black truffle pecorino grilled cheese on the side. So I'm using a black steel pan. It's been on the flat top for quite some time and it has some really nice heat going to it. So I'm putting the scallops right in the oil.
In between the demos, we're talking about where you've been and where you worked. And you worked
Yes.
at the Ryland Inn back in the day when that was honestly the greatest restaurant that New Jersey had ever seen.
Absolutely.
And for a long time, held that mantle. I mean, talk about how old were you? Did you go to cooking school? What got you into cooking? How'd you end up there?
I started in pizzerias. I wanted to play ice hockey, and my dad said if I wanted to play, I had to earn money to pay for the ice time and pay for pads and everything else. So started in pizzerias. I spent 8 years of my life in pizzerias. Went to college for 1 year for business school. It just didn't
work out.
Didn't work out.
A lot of us had that experience.
Yep.
So you were just luck of the draw. You're at the CIA. You're trying to do research back then, kind of pre-Google-ish.
Exactly.
And the Ryland, he was on the cover of Gourmet magazine.
Right.
I remember that cover. Like,
absolutely.
What? He's in the garden. He's bending down, and I'm like, wow.
One of my friends from high school, his brother was actually the chef de cuisine at the Ryland, and he mentioned that I should go there and check it out. And I looked at the menu, and I didn't understand one single word on the menu. That was
all French,
not in English.
Right.
And it just made me want to learn about it. So I went there and I did my internship. After graduating, I went back and stayed there for 6 years.
How lucky. The stuff he was doing, pre-Michelin, pre-Relais and Chateau, really, in this country, I think he was like on a par with the best of the best anywhere.
Absolutely. It was an amazing experience, and I owe a lot of gratitude to Craig. At this point, I'm going to add a little bit of butter, give a little more of an even sear on the scallops. So here we have a butternut squash and preserved lemon puree.
That's that salty lemon, like the Moroccan style.
Exactly. It just adds a little bit of an interesting flavor to it. You can't really put your finger on what it is. You just know that it's lemon, and it has just a little touch of funk to it as well. Yeah. And we're just going to lightly kiss them on the backside. We don't want to overcook them. They're so fresh. So here we have some kale sprouts. They're actually a mix between a Brussels sprout and a kale. So we're just going to deep fry these. The spaghetti squash I finished with a little bit of chive. Then it goes right in the middle here. So a pretty simple plate up, straightforward and circular on this beautiful round plate. And then here I have a pancetta vinaigrettes. Scallops and pork are a match made in heaven. And then we have some of our kale sprouts. Pockets of fried deliciousness.
Sweet.
Only 4 ingredients or so, but there's a lot going on.
A lot going on is right.
All right, so we have our black sea bass.
Black sea bass, man, one of my favorite fish out of the North Atlantic.
They're
They're out there in the deep water. They're this time of year. They're fantastic.
So it's all seasoned up already with a little bit of salt and some black pepper, and we put a little bit of olive oil on it. We're just going to go right into our steamer.
It took me a year and a half of being here, and at first we were farm to table and blah blah blah. And then I realized that probably the most important food product that is created in Jersey is fish. I mean, the fish off the Jersey coast is phenomenal.
Correct. Again, these beautiful plates.
Again, another handmade plate by Kiko. She's pretty amazing. So this black bass, it's kind of a Thai influence. We have some baby bok choy, a little bit of celery in there as well, and then some new potatoes, just some small butterball potatoes, which get cooked and folded into the bok choy. And then here we have some coconut broth. Pretty much just coconut milk. We have some aromatics in there, ginger, lemongrass, garlic. We finish it with a little bit of Thai basil, some mint, and some cilantro, and then strain it all out just so we get that flavor in there. It gets steeped in there. Some fish sauce and some lime juice.
I've been doing seafood a long time. I started in the Gloucester House. I did Madeira. So seafood to me is very important, and the most important thing in seafood is fresh.
So let's take a look here.
Yeah, man, look at that. Black bass.
Black bass. And then we have a few garnishes that finish off this plate. We have some chili oil with
I
dry,
was thinking, because you have no oil, I was going to ask if you had any chili in the,
dry
but you
Thai
didn't.
chilies. Nope. We just
And
added
the coconut milk, so that's where the chili comes in.
Yep.
It needed it.
A little bit of cilantro oil, some Thai basil leaves, just freshness and plays well with the coconut. And then here we have a crumble that we make. It has crispy shallots, some toasted nori seaweed, sesame seeds, and we take a salmon skin and we deep fry it and puff it, and it just adds a little bit of texture to it.
That's beautiful, man. Oh yeah, she's done. And just hold that side up. Come on, Michael, you can do better than that. That's good. That's beautiful.
We want to showcase New Jersey and how great Jersey is. And it's one of the great things in New Jersey. Jersey Shore, the seafood. I also own 20% of an oyster farm in Maniloki.
Is that where your oysters come from downstairs?
A lot of the oysters come from my oyster farm, and
Okay.
then other oyster farms. When we started, there were probably like three. There was Cape May salts,
Correct,
and then
which is
there
a
was
triploid
a couple
oyster.
of
It's a funny
other.
oyster.
Right, there was
Delicious.
a couple other producers, but now since we started with 40 North oysters, there's now maybe 10, 15 more oyster farmers that are in the bay and producing amazing oysters.
Next up, we have a grilled oyster. So we actually grill the oysters in the shell. They're local oysters. They're from New Jersey. They're called great white oysters. Here we have an apple puree, just some cooked apples. There's a little bit of parsnip in here as well, which ties into the rest of the dish. So I'm just gonna put this down just a little bit. And then we're gonna work our oysters around. As you can see, the oysters are pretty much like, they're barely set. The proteins are barely set. Some little parsnips that have been cut down into squares, and some dehydrated apple as well. Again, playing off some classic flavors here. Parsnip and apple are kind of a match made in heaven. Some cabbage as well, just been blanched off lightly in some salted boiling water. We have a little bit of lemon thyme here. So lemon thyme itself it's thyme, but it has a very, very potent lemon flavor. It's very aromatic. And then we have some, just some julienne apples here. We're just gonna put a few on.
And the apples are Granny Smith that
Apples
you
are
just
Granny Smith.
bâtonnet, toss them in acidulated waters.
Exactly.
That's going to just crunch, acid, some sourness, and a little sweetness back there too.
That's it. It just balances out the dish. Again, anytime you're creating a dish, you want a balance of textures and flavors and fats and acids. And if you don't have that balance, the dish can lay flat. So by adding these apples, it gives a little bump of acidity. Just a simple emulsion with the oyster juice, and that'll just add some richness to the dish as well.
Man, there's a lot going on there. That's great.
This is a scallop ceviche, so just a little raw diced scallop. We put some avocado at the bottom of the bowl, season it lightly with salt, and then we have a tomatillo, jalapeno, and cilantro mix that we put on top. Mix it all together. A little bit of cucumber, some cilantro to finish.
Jersey, man. You got scallops.
Light wine is a Riesling from Eden Valley in Australia.
Really?
110-year-old vines.
Really?
Yep. I mean, my job as a sommelier, owner, whatever I am, a purveyor of wine.
All the above.
All those things, is I feel the responsibility to find amazing wines at a reasonable price. And on the left is 2009 Zesnier from Chenin Blanc from the Loire.
No way.
Well, that to me is the focus of the list, is try to find really amazing, unique products that are reasonably priced that people can just enjoy.
So we're 0 for 4? Thank you. Just keep saying that. Just keep saying
Sauvignon
that.
Blanc from Friuli is a whole other animal. Yeah, we do a dinner every Friday night that's called the Cannonball Wine Dinner, where it's 5 courses, 5 wines blind. We pour them blind out of the decanter, and it's $95. Amazing food, really interesting wines, and usually the people that come, they're just blown away. They can't believe like what the wines are, where they came from.
What got you into wine? Not that anybody needs anything to get into wine, but
Yeah, we've been a bottle of Tosh 71.
That'll do it. That could be a gateway.
Yeah, you know, it was a gateway drug, yeah. So since then, I've been into wine, love wine, and find that wine is probably the most fascinating part of my job. You know, getting to know winemakers. They're amazing people. They're both farmers.
Right.
They're artists.
Right.
They're human.
Yeah.
Really human, and the human part of this business is what makes this business fantastic.
The whole front end of the show was based on this amazing thing that happened a couple of years ago where Kane University discovered these demijohns they had no idea what it was. It turns out to be centuries old Madeira that had been sitting at Liberty Hall. So long story short, we're filming that. There's a Christie's auction coming up. But the point was they're taking this cork out gently and they pour it and they're doing the homework and it's there. I mean, Eric Asimov was the little taste. There's acids there. It's these things still alive. And it got me thinking about cork a lot. Talk about cork and the magic of cork as a sealant.
Well, cork allows slight transfer of oxygen. You know, so it's controlled oxidation, which, you know, oxygen is basically the enemy of wine or fruit or whatever. If you cut an apple, leave it out, it turns brown. Same thing with wine. It'll brown off the wine. If there's too much of it, it'll turn into vinegar. But a really good cork can allow, over time, if the wine is stored, you know, properly sideways and the cork is wet, it'll allow some oxygen, a limited amount, to age the wine in a way that'll accentuate the wine and make it more interesting over time.
Which is astonishing.
I think it was kind of lucky. I don't think they really realized that.
You with cork, right? Because it was just this thing that grew on trees in Portugal. It was like perfect. We take it off. It's a stopper. It doesn't leak. We put a little.
You know, it's springy.
It expands right into champagne bottles. It fills that space up right away.
595. This is the old Cercio Madeira, 1846.
Well, now that was sure fun. A subway ride to the Bronx to uncork mystery demijohns and taste centuries-old Madeira. The epic press lunch the next day at Christie's. Touring Liberty Hall with Mr. Kane, and that blind tasting dinner at Jockey Hollow, where owner Chris Cannon has assembled a super well-curated wine list featuring 60 bottles under $60. Yep, some weeks are just better than others. Mike Colameco's Real Food is brought to you by the continuous, generous support of the following underwriters.
Extra virgin olive oil from COLAVITA, an Italian family brand.
Rachel Ray's signature specialty food line, designed for preparing meals at home.